You're listening to another episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, good morning. It's Thursday here in beautiful downtown Crowley. How you doing, Taylor? Are you doing any better? I know you've been sickly.
I'm feeling alive.
You're feeling alive? Yeah, I'm still.
Yep.
You know, this stuff I got comes and goes. The afternoons and evenings, I'm okay, and then I wake up and I feel like
Yeah, mornings is always the worst.
the mornings are the worst. Yeah, but it just is what it is, and I'll tough it out.
Honey citrus mint tea, Starbucks.
Yes, you mentioned that. Even though you're not a tea fan, you get that every day, huh? Well,
Lately.
Well, should check it out. I suppose my wife has some sort of tea that she makes when she gets like this, so maybe you should try it. Well, anyway, we're going to talk about a couple things today. Political, we haven't done this in a while, which is fun. We're going to talk about Hunter Biden's indictment and is it legit or not, or is it just politics? And of course, people have their opinions. I'm going to look at it from that angle: is it just politics, or is there something there? Also, the second half of the show, we're going to talk about the polls, which I have to admit, I'm pretty surprised. I expected the polls to start changing a little bit in favor of Joe Biden by this point, and they're going the other direction, as we'll see. And it's just it surprises me. But what can you say? Sometimes I'm not always right. Can you believe that, Taylor?
What?
I know. Anyway, here I'm going to get this all rigged up here for Facebook and Spotify and all this other routine. Come on. All right. Anyway, so let's go through our friends that make this all possible. There you go.
Volume.
Yes, I was trying to get the volume down. It's like, phone, will you work? Dadgummit. All right. Anyway, CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. The ladies, Lexi and Bailey, can help you out if you've got certain goals in mind, particularly for the new year. Everybody has New Year's resolutions. Do you have one, Taylor?
I'll find one.
I don't do that myself because I figured, well, if it's a good thing, why am I waiting till January 1st?
That is true.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't really have one. I think it's kind of one of those things that people do. I'll split it back. I'm sorry, ladies. I got off the track. CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Check out their webpage for classes, for times, for the programs they have. They have training, they have supervision. So it's a safe environment. It's a monitored environment. So you're not just throwing iron around. You're going to have people there that are going to help you get to your goals. Also, thank you. Hang on about. See, we'll be doing that a lot today. Also, thank you, Shandy Stog Steel Group. Hope everything is well with you, and I know that you're still pretty busy, even though right now it's Christmas time. A lot of people slow down. They're not thinking about buying a house. Actually, this is a pretty good time to be looking for houses because they're there on the market. And what I read today and what Candy Gow and Sammy Campbell will tell you is that the rates are starting to drift downward, which is always a good thing. So, anyways, Shandy, thank you for your support, and I hope you're doing well. Also, thank you to Otto at our place, and I've been mentioning this all week. 2 days from now, next Saturday on the 16th, Stephen Carl Jansen, our Burleson Santa, is going to be there, and he's collecting as many Christmas cards as he can for the Aiken family. This is going to be the first Christmas his boys will not have their father, and so he was just very touched by that when they came to visit and have pictures made about 2 weeks ago, and so he's trying to make their Christmas as good as possible. So if you can't make it Saturday, you can drop by in the next couple of days and then leave a card at the counter or something like that, and or bring one if you want to see Santa, and then have pictures made there. It's all on Otto, no big deal. And so he'll take them and he's going to deliver them about 4 or 5 days later himself. And so these little boys are going to get a personal visit from Santa. That's going to be a big deal. But as far as our place, of course, that's the place that kind of thing happens because that's Otto. He's that kind of person, a very community-oriented person, and we appreciate what he does for us. Also, thank you to Chris, another community-oriented person. He and Nathan over at Wild Cigar got a lot of plans. Saturday is their anniversary, and they're going to be of their store. Let's be clear. Anyway, it's going to be the anniversary of their store, and they have a very, very nice place, and it's going to have cigar specials and drink specials and whatnot. And it's a good place to go and watch the ball games. There's going to be NFL games on all day, and then we got the bowl games coming up. So it's a good place to spend some time there this holiday season. And also they have gift cards. I've given them before as well. So get some gift cards if you know somebody that likes a good cigar. Also, Tiffany over at Local Life, she's working hard on the next issue. This month's issue is Harvest House on the cover. And I just saw her last Friday at an event at Southern Gym, and she says she's doing very well. And I wouldn't doubt it because it goes to a lot of homes. And I saw on the coffee table at Gayla's place, I had several copies of the latest issue. And I saw some of the husbands were sitting in that bullpen, as I call it, while the ladies were looking, and they were kind of glancing through it. And so this gets a lot more eyeballs than just the ones that you receive in your mailbox. So if you're looking to advertise, that's a good place to do it. Also, our friend Cody O'Brien at Burleson Buzz. If you go to burlesonbuzz.com/Allard23, you'll get a discount on your subscription. And I would advise getting a subscription because this has really become a place where I really do go for news. In fact, a big part of Monday's show with Victoria Johnson is going to be on what was reported in the Burleson Buzz about the city council meeting this past Monday. So if you want to keep up to date, it's a good place to do it. So thank you, Cody. I'm sorry I'm going to be hacking my way through all of this. Before we get into the heavy news, let's let our friend Jimmy here tell us what's going on in the world.
Some political news. Tonight, President Biden was in L.A. for a campaign fundraiser with Steven Spielberg. Yeah. Biden knows Spielberg's work well. Anytime his staff brings his poll numbers, he hears the theme from Jaws. Of course, because it's Hollywood, Biden won't admit his approval rating is shrinking. He just says it's on Ozempic. Speaking of Biden, earlier today he announced the largest investment in passenger rail transportation since the creation of Amtrak. Yep, the largest investment since the creation of Amtrak, which is big for Biden because he was there for the creation of the wheel. Whoa. Yep, Biden just announced a massive new rail investment, and we actually got our hands on the message Biden recorded that they're playing on every train in the country starting today. Really? Yeah, check this out.
Oh, this is President Biden. Thank you for writing public transportation. I love trains, man. I like really long, slow cars. You buy pretzels in them. Don't forget that, Jack. I remember back in Dover, I would just drive the train with my pal Corn Pop. I always had a pocket full of salamanders. Come on now, you can't make this stuff up. Anyway, enjoy this plane ride. Sugar Land is shortly.
Very interesting. I think that's fantastic. Come on. Come on, Jeff.
Pocket full of salamanders.
Yeah, pocket full of salamanders. That's right. Well, people were talking about this last night. Hunter Biden was indicted on 9 tax charges. Yeah, in a 56-page indictment, he's accused of dodging federal taxes, making false payments on Venmo, and fraud. Well, when asked how he feels about Hunter not paying his taxes, President Biden said, "It is very disappointing." While former President Trump said, "OMG, it me." Next, when asked how he feels about Hunter Venmoing $1,500 to an exotic dancer, President Biden said, "It's irresponsible." While Trump said, "Pro tip, if you send the Venmo to charity, they don't realize it's a stripper's name." And finally, when asked if he considered pardoning Hunter, President Biden said, "No." And Trump said, "Pardon him, I'll adopt his ass."
Yeah, I like that. A little humor, but yeah, but bump, you know. I like Jimmy Fallon. I usually don't watch the late night shows. I can't stand Colbert and Kimmel because it's like, why would I go and watch their shows? Because they assault every value I have. And Jimmy Fallon kind of keeps it in the middle, like Jay Leno did, and I appreciate that. But anyway, but it is serious business about this indictment for Hunter Biden. And, you know, what's ironic to me is that Joe Biden campaigned in 2020 about how we're going to make the tax cheats pay up and how we're going to make the rich pay their fair share. And Elizabeth Warren practically spontaneously combusted every time she got on that topic. And, you know, Bernie Sanders, you know, the veins in his head stood out when he was yelling and hollering about it. And Biden said, we're going to make these cheats pay up. And then part of that egregiously named Inflation Reduction Act was that they're going to bump up about $80 billion in IRS enforcement. Because according to Mr. Biden, every year that these tax cheats don't pay up, it's costing us not every year, at least over a decade, it's going to cost us like $700 billion. Okay, and this is the article, this is out of the CNBC. The IRS cracked down. Biden administration says it could raise $700 billion by targeting tax cheats. Well, and then the irony of all of this is that part of the cuts that the Republicans want to do when they took over the House was on the IRS to drop some of the money that was going towards it. And they were willing to shut the government down over that, but they didn't. But Biden fought tooth and nail to keep the IRS enforcement up. And now you have Hunter Biden being indicted for cheating on his taxes. So the irony is pretty rich, because it's going to be hard for Mr. Biden in the next election to be talking about how we need to be cracking down on cheats when his own son's under indictment. I mean, that's going to be the rebuttal every time he opens his mouth about this issue. His son is basically taking that issue off the table. And there's no chance in the world that Joe Biden's going to, throw Hunter under the bus. Hunter Biden, I'm telling you, is, all politics aside, is not a decent man. And he's caused his father a great deal of grief. And in some ways, Joe Biden has enabled his son, Hunter, in many ways. But a lot of people say, it's inappropriate to talk about his son, keep the family out of it. That's true if you're talking about family members that aren't involving themselves in their father's or mother's business. Hunter Biden very much attached himself to Joe Biden's political career and used Joe Biden as a means of enriching himself greatly. The fact that he was put on several boards of these European and Asian companies had nothing to do with Hunter Biden. It had to do, of course, with his father. The biggest one is this Ukrainian oil company called Burisma, and the fact that Hunter Biden boasted that he was on that board because of his father. That's one reason why I don't think this is an inappropriate investigation or indictment, because it isn't like they're going after Hunter Biden's or Joe Biden's kids, rather, just because they're related. Hunter Biden used his father's access to enrich himself, and in many cases, according to this indictment, could be fraudulently hiding the money that he made. Now, Taylor, you got that clip on the NBC News? Let's run that one. It kind of explains some of this.
This morning, a dramatic escalation of the criminal investigation into Hunter Biden, the president's son, now accused of a criminal scheme of tax fraud. A new indictment charging Biden with failing to pay his taxes on time and instead spending millions of dollars on an extravagant lifestyle. A federal jury in Los Angeles indicting Hunter Biden on 9 counts, including 3 felonies. The 56-page indictment saying Biden earned millions in income between 2016 and 2020. But the defendant spent this money on drugs, escorts, and girlfriends, luxury hotels and rental properties, exotic cars, clothing, and other items of a personal nature. In short, everything but his taxes. Prosecutors laying out a devastating portrait of Hunter Biden creating false business deductions. In one example, prosecutors alleging that Biden wired an employee money and labeled it a golf member deposit, when according to prosecutors, it was used to purchase a membership in a sex club. These latest charges all part of the investigation led by special counsel David Weiss. Weiss's team brought federal gun charges against Biden in Delaware back in September. Hunter Biden attorney Abby Lowell said in a statement that if the president's son's last name was anything other than Biden, the charges in Delaware and now in California would not have been brought. President Joe Biden is not mentioned in this new indictment, but the allegations are sure to kick up a political firestorm. The president has held firm in his support of his son in the past.
First of all, my son's done nothing wrong.
The president now facing the possibility of his son going to trial in 2 places in the midst of his re-election bid.
So, Laura, there was this plea deal. It fell apart.
Taylor.
Now here we are. Is there any chance?
All right. Here's the thing. About 3 months ago, Hunter Biden's attorneys in Delaware reached a very sweetheart deal on a plea agreement that the judge threw out. Basically, she started asking a lot of questions about it, and they threw it out. Basically, it was on a gun charge, and also including in this plea deal, if he pled guilty to falsifying a gun request or a gun background check form, I guess is a better way to put it, that they would basically drop all the other charges, including tax charges, and the judge said that's ridiculous, basically. And so the same special prosecutor now has been shamed into having to actually indict Joe Biden's son. Now, Joe Biden, like they mentioned, is not mentioned in the indictment. And even though the Republican Congress, if you will, has they claim to have evidence of financial transactions that involve Joe Biden, they haven't been presented to the public, nor have they been presented in court. So we'll have to wait to see what they have. But the point is that this would never happen had that judge in Delaware had accepted the plea deal. But now, when they appointed the same guy as a special prosecutor, the David Weiss that they mentioned he's the U.S. attorney for Delaware, and he was the one that arranged this plea deal. And then they appointed him as special counsel, which is highly unusual, because usually special counsels come from outside the government. But Merrick Garland, basically just made it easy on himself, so to speak, by just appointing this guy. David Weiss basically was shamed into having to bring these actual charges. Critics of the indictment have come from both sides. Of course, some say, like, his attorney, well, if his name wasn't Biden, charges wouldn't have been brought. That's totally ludicrous. That's attorney's talk. If his name had not been Biden, he'd have been in jail by now for various things, not just tax cheating, but various other things. The Biden name has protected Hunter all these years. Second of all, on the other side, they're saying it didn't go far enough. It ignored other evidence that could have had Joe as part of the indictment, or maybe as an unindicted co-conspirator, as they say, and that kind of thing. But so basically, David Weiss tried to split the difference and satisfied neither side of the political argument. But I will want to reiterate this point: the idea that Hunter Biden's being picked just because he's Joe Biden's son. I don't buy it for a second, because if you look at the background of Hunter Biden over all these years, over and over and over again, he has skirted the law, or he skirted ethics. I'm not talking about his personal life, which is all just egregious in my opinion, but he's always been on the very edge of legality. And because his name is Biden, he's been able to profit from that. He makes no bones about it. He and his uncle, Joe's brother James, have made millions of dollars off the Biden name over the last 20 years. And that's not just accusations, that's provable. And it has been proven. And this indictment shows that the money he's making, I think it exposed a lifestyle that Hunter Biden, it was totally, what's a good word for it? I mean, it just, without any kind of moral compass whatsoever. I'm reading some of the quotes here that this is from National Review, that's quoting others like Axios and Politico. So they talked about how Hunter Biden, I'm reading here, Hunter Biden would go and spend money and all this other stuff, then claim poverty when it came to taking care of his ex-wife and also that child he had with the Arkansas exotic dancer, if you will. I'll just read something from Charles C.W. Cook's article. Yet that same year, Hunter Biden texted his ex-wife that he could not make his alimony payment due to insufficient funds. He meanwhile stayed at various luxury hotels, spent $10,000 to purchase a membership in a sex club, like the news article just mentioned, and claimed a $1,248 cross-country airline tickets for an exotic dancer were a business expense, according to the indictment. He spent $383,000 in payments to women and $151,000 on clothing. Now, how do you spend that kind of much money on clothing?
Jeez.
I mean, $151,000.
I thought I had expensive taste.
Yeah, $151,000 in clothes. I can't even imagine that. There's other aspects of Hunter Biden's personal life that are just nauseating to me, that while he was married, before he was divorced, he was having an affair with his late brother's widow. That's creepy to me. Also, the fact that he had that child with that woman in Arkansas, and he never claimed it. He took DNA tests. He fought tooth and nail about it. And he finally, he got out of paying alimony by giving this woman like several of his worthless paintings that someday she could sell maybe to send her daughter to school. What's really interesting is how the Biden family had to be shamed and acknowledging this girl's existence, this little girl. She's about 4 years old now. And the Biden family tradition was they'd hang all the grandchildren's stockings at the White House fireplace. They're not doing it this year because they don't want to acknowledge this seventh child. What is the matter with these people? I don't understand it. But that's just me, all right? I believe Hunter Biden's indictment's legitimate because it was brought by somebody who had very little desire or interest in bringing that indictment. He was forced to bring it. Second of all, another thing that's on this is how they all blame Hunter Biden's addiction to drugs as the cause of all this. To me, that excuse only goes so far. Okay? It only goes so far. The addictions, I know, make people do things often they wouldn't do otherwise, but Hunter Biden's been doing this for his whole life. And I just think they're trying to play upon the sympathy of the people by saying it's addiction that caused all this. No, it didn't. His lack of moral character did all this. All right? Addictions happen to good people sometimes. Hunter Biden's not one of them. He's lived this life all his life. And to blame all his legal and financial troubles on drugs, I think in my opinion, is a way of getting your sympathy and saying, why are we kicking this man when he was addicted to drugs? There's only so far that excuse goes for me. But maybe I'm being a little hard-hearted, but I'm just saying that they're using this to try to appeal to your sympathy, not to basically to take account or take a responsibility for their own actions. All right, and then let's go on. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, I forgot one more thing. Yesterday, the Republicans in the House voted to open an impeachment inquiry straight across party lines, 221 to 212, which is the breakdown in the House. I have a mixed opinion about this. I think, on the one hand, impeachment's becoming a go-to, that every time we have a president of one party in the House of the other, we're going to be looking at impeachments, whether they're legitimate or not. I thought the impeachment of Donald Trump on the first one was pretty much overblown. And also you get these, the investigation about him being tied with Russia ended up with a big bag of nothing. And now on the other hand, we're going to be impeaching Joe Biden or have an inquiry. And I just think this is a dangerous area we're letting ourselves slide into, that every time we don't like a president and we don't have control of the House, we're going to find a means to impeach him. But on the other hand, I do believe there's something there. I do believe that the Biden family, including Joe, have used their position to profit. And I have been that Joe Biden, his degree of involvement is yet to be determined. And their total lack of cooperation with this investigation gives the Republicans all the excuse they need to open an inquiry. For one thing, an impeachment inquiry has greater subpoena power than your typical congressional committee. And not answering a subpoena from an impeachment inquiry could be added to the impeachment charges. So I'm kind of in the middle. I don't want this to be the norm for our country, that every time we have a president of one party in the House of the other, then it's just going to happen and they'll find something. But I do think, on the other hand, there's something there. I really do believe that even indirectly, Joe Biden, even if he may not have gotten a dollar for himself, which I still have my deep suspicions, but even if he didn't profit $1, he set up his family to do so and used his office to do it. And is that an impeachable offense? I believe so. There's a clause in the Constitution, the emoluments clause, as they call it, basically saying that the president can't profit from his position. And yes, I get it about Trump and all this, about about his taxes and about how he, didn't divest himself of his investments and all this. Okay, I got it. One doesn't make the other okay. But the point is that I do believe Joe Biden I do believe you did profit from it. Now, that's not the same thing as knowing. It's not the same thing as proving. And I think this inquiry may end up doing something, but along those lines. And so it remains to be seen what happens. All right, let's run to the second round. How's my voice sounding to you, Taylor? Am I hanging in there?
Yeah, you're hanging in there.
Yeah,
You need a tea.
I do. I feel like I'm gargling with gravel right now.
Ugh.
But anyway, Southern Gym. They're open right now. They're going to be open late. They're going to be open on Saturday, every day until the 23rd. They got lots going on there. Robin comes home kind of late, and she briefly tells me about her day. She says she's so busy because the day just flies by. And so a lot going on over at Southern Gym, over by the Standard. I'm sorry, my mind went blank for just a second. But anyway, it's a great place to go for Christmas gifts. They have all sorts of services, repairs, designs, the whole thing. So check out Southern Gym for your Christmas shopping. Also, thank you to Old Pro Roofing with John Williams, 817-734-2756. The time to find out about your roof is not when it's raining. You need to have your roof inspected routinely. He tells us this at the B&I meetings we go to, that it's always a good idea to have your roof annually checked. And it didn't cost you anything to have it checked. And with Old Pro, John come by. If he sees something, he'll tell you. If he says you're good to go, he'll tell you. So 817-734-2756. Also, my friends are at Camco, with Camco Mortgage, Sammy Campbell, Candy Gal. They've been doing this for about 20 years now. They have their own business. And you can call Sammy at 817-778-4592 or Candy at 817-925-2661. And they'll set you up with the latest information about mortgages, about rates. If you're looking to refinance, you're looking to buy, talk to them, because they really are good people with a great deal of integrity. I've used them twice, and for refinancing, for like school payments and house repairs and things of that nature. And they really know their business, and they're going to tell you the straight story, and they'll hold your hand through the whole process if you're concerned about it. They're good people. So Sammy and Candy, thank you for what you do for our community. They're here in town. This is not some area out of somebody's house. They have their own business and everything, no spot and everything. It's in the B&G building at the south end of that complex. Okay, and this is also, we've been pushing this pretty good. You'll see this in a lot of the restaurants and stores, particularly in the women's restrooms throughout the Burleson area. It's the QR code will direct a person to a link that they can make a report if they're being abused, they're being assaulted, if they're in a relationship that is dangerous. They can confidentially hit the QR code and fill this form out. And if need be, the police will get involved. All right? They're not going to get involved on everything, but if they're going, if a report is I'm being assaulted or being abused or whatever else, it's going to connect you to the right people. Stephanie Beard, Colin Gregory were on the show about a week ago Monday. They're going to be on the show again in a month. We're going to talk about this again. And so you'll be seeing these. These posters cost $7 a piece, which is below cost, actually. And a lot of businesses around town have been buying them up. I know our place, Walmart did. I think H-E-B did. I believe Texas Bar did. So, they're going to be seeing them in a lot of places. And so if you know of somebody, or if you yourself could use it, avail yourself of this. And you'll be with the Victims Assistance Group. Also, it doesn't have to be just strictly for victims, by the way. If you're new to this community and you don't know where to get, a bag of groceries or where to stay or whatever else, and you're homeless or living out of your car, that group can also help you get connected to Harvest House or Promises or Crazy Eights or whatever else. So, use that. It's a great thing we're doing. All right, let's talk about the polls. All right, here's the thing overall. People always say, the polls aren't accurate, whatever else. The truth is, polls are fairly accurate. That margin of error of plus or minus 3, as I teach in class, is pretty much a standard for accuracy. So when you see a poll that has plus or minus 2.5 or plus or minus 3, the poll is probably going to be pretty close to accurate, give or take a point. Anything past that, like 4 or 5, forget it. It's not worth looking at. So I don't even bother looking at these kind of polls that are, done by, student groups at a college or whatever else. These are the polls I look at are usually ones done by networks and newspapers or independent polling organizations. And there's a website that I go to see how accurate they are and have been over the last few years. And if they have a B+ rating or more, then I take heed of it. After that, not so much. Now, what's interesting about these polls is that they are going in a certain direction. And it's not the direction I expected. I expected sooner or later, as time passes and it just incrementally as we get closer to the election day, which is now 11 months or 10 and a half months away. And I'll be honest, before you know it, I incrementally I thought that that Biden and Trump would probably start switching places, and that's not what's happening. Trump is inching out incrementally further and further ahead. Now, here's a couple of other tips. We're not talking about an election that's state-based. It's nationally based. And as y'all know, particularly if you took the professor's class, the Electoral College is where the election's decided, not just overall. It's not a popular vote. So when you see a poll saying that Biden's up by a point or Trump's up by a point nationally, yeah, it's significant. But what's really where the action is on the state polls, particularly the swing state polls. And what's happening now is that Trump is pulling ahead in all the swing states, including states he lost in 2020. Wall Street Journal came out with their poll last week, and it really rocked the Democrat Party because it wasn't just that showed that Trump is up by 4 points nationally. It also showed, the state polls in his favor, but it also showed, they broke it down into groups and what they thought about the two men's performances, whatever else. And this one really got the Democrats worked up. 28% of the pollsters said, of the people polled, said that they were better off under Joe Biden economically. 47% said that of Trump. All right. More people by a healthy margin thought they were better off under Trump than they are by Biden. Also, even though Biden still leads with the Hispanic vote and black vote, it's by much more narrow margins than 2020. He leads the younger voters, but by a much more narrow margin than he did 2020. So even if he still leads in those areas, Trump has made tremendous inroads, particularly in the minority vote, according to the Wall Street Journal. And that's significant, again, because it isn't, where are these votes going to be taken? If you have a higher percentage of black and minority voters, and Hispanic, Asian, et cetera, voting for Trump, what does that do for Michigan? What does that do for Texas? What does that do for Florida? That's how it's going to work out. And so that's what got the Democrats really, really concerned. And so I went and yesterday I screenshotted. Is it screenshotted? Is that a word? I don't know.
Took a screenshot.
Took a screenshot of the various polls of the various states. And so I'm going to go through them with you. And then, also one that came just this morning that really surprised me. Like here in Florida, they don't even bother polling in Florida much because Trump is up by almost 10 points in Florida. Okay. So that's a really, they don't bother polling in California either because, Biden's way ahead there. So, but I looked at Florida, and the last one was by 10 points, and it's been steady. And that's the thing is, it's not also just the final average or whatever else. It's also the trend that you look at these charts. I hope y'all see this on YouTube or Facebook, but it's also the trend you should look at. And basically, you look at this trend, and Trump is moving forward in almost every poll in Florida. Also, the next one, we talked about Georgia, that Trump lost, and he's up by 5.5 points average And the trend, again, is in his favor. Here's the thing also you need to understand about Georgia. On the day the election was taken in 2020, Biden was up by +1. Okay? So a lot of Trumpers thought they were going to win Georgia because as a general rule, not universally, but as a general rule, usually Republicans do a couple points better than what they poll in terms of the final turnout. And of course, then Georgia went Democrat, and all the hair pulling and the cases that are involved in that. It's a whole nother story. But the point is that at no time did Trump, or on the average anyway, was ahead of Biden in Georgia. Now he's up 5.5 or 5.4 to be precise. So he's already doing a lot better than in Georgia. And this is the site of one of the court cases about, inappropriate involvement in the election and all this other business. All right. And the next one we have, we have the other state ones, don't we? Let's do the state ones, and then we'll come back to the general. Thank you. Michigan, another state that Trump never led in the polls. He's up by 4.1. In the last one, the CNN poll that came out about a week ago, he's up by 10 points. And CNN is not what somebody I would say is on the Trump bandwagon. What's cost him in Michigan by Biden, in Michigan has been the war in Israel, because there's 300,000 Arab American voters in Michigan, and they have all said, we're not voting for Biden because of his pro-Israel stance. And because of that, I think Biden's starting to waffle a bit on his stance with Israel. We talked about that on Tuesday's show, and I think he's starting to shimmy and shake because his poll numbers in Michigan are so bad. Okay, what's the next state here? We got Arizona, another state in which, of course, Biden lost. Another state that throughout the entire time of polling, Biden was always up on the average like 1 or 2 points. And it was still much more close than that. Okay, but the polls are fairly accurate. But the point is that all throughout the running polls, Trump is always like a point or two behind Biden, and he ends up losing by like 0.3 or something very, very narrow. Here, he's up by 4.3. All right? So he's leading in states that he never led in before. He's leading in states that he lost. Pennsylvania, he lost. He's up. This is a bit more narrow. He's up by 1.5. But he lost it by more than that. And so and also, again, you look at the trend, and it's been pretty steady, but he's still up in Pennsylvania when he never was during the election. And, of course, he lost it. Now he's up. Okay? I think I have 2 more states. North Carolina, another state narrowly went for Trump in this case. This was one of those states that Trump was up by like a point on Election Day and ends up winning by 3, I think. Right now, he's up by 9. And that's amazing to me. It really is. There's the one that came out this morning. I think it's Taylor. I think I sent it to you. Yeah, that's the one. And this is from the the Bloomberg Morning Consult. The Bloomberg is a pretty good poll. A- or something like that is what I think it has, and it has all these states I just talked about, and Trump is ahead in every single one today. This was done up until I think last week, and then they reported it today. And so he's up in all these various states. And then they have him, Trump versus Biden, and they also have Trump versus Biden versus Robert Kennedy versus Cornel West versus Jill Stein. Now, if you don't know, we know Robert Kennedy Jr. is, okay, and that Cornel West is going to run as an independent. He's a Princeton philosophy professor, and, he's on a lot of these left-wing talk shows and whatnot, and he's an African-American, and he's often brought in on as discussion panels on that topic, and he's going to run as independent. Jill Stein is with the Green Party, and she ran in 2016, and a lot of people were mad at her because she cost Hillary Wisconsin, they say. But anyway, so they have Trump and Biden, and Trump is ahead in every one of them. And then they put Biden and Trump and Kennedy and West and Stein together, and Trump is up in some cases even more so. And what's interesting, like I'll just take Wisconsin, for example. Wisconsin, he's up by 4. Okay? That's another state that of course, Biden lost narrowly. Not Biden, sorry. Trump lost narrowly in 2020, and now he's up and he's up by 4 in Wisconsin. And then you put all the candidates together, and he's up by 6. And that doesn't even include Joe Manchin possibility of no labels. We could have an election, seriously, we could have an election that I haven't seen in my lifetime where we have up to 6 nationwide candidates. It's not unusual for third parties to get on certain ballots in certain states because it's pretty easy. In certain states, like it's really easy to get on in Oregon, for example, where it's very difficult to get on Texas. But we could have a situation where we have 6 nationwide candidates that, in 2016, we had 4 nationwide candidates, if you want to include Gary Johnson of the Libertarians and Stein of the Greens. But no one really paid a lot of attention to them. We could have a situation where we have this level of notoriety with Kennedy Jr. and Joe Manchin as well. It's going to be fascinating for somebody like myself. Let's look at a couple of the polls you had throughout there. The general election one. Overall, Trump is up by 2.5. Now, again, I point out the fact is that we don't conduct our elections overall. The states are, again, really where you need to be looking at. Because you got California that's heavily Democrat. You got Texas, which is pretty Republican, to say the least. You got Oklahoma and Utah very red, where you have Illinois and New York very blue and all this. And so it may give you a snapshot of the general feeling. But the truth is that this isn't the main predictor of how a presidential election is going to go. It's, again, back to those states. I think I had one also against Biden versus a couple others. Nikki Haley does better than Trump. Haley's up by 5.8 on the average. Almost all the polls show that Haley would beat Biden thoroughly. Like the Wall Street Journal one they had last week, she beats him by 17 points. 17. Now, my personal preference is Nikki Haley. All right? I'm not a big fan of Mr. Trump. I think people know that. But I'm trying to analyze this subjectively. But I prefer, I just think Nikki Haley has a better chance of winning. Okay? And then the DeSantis versus Biden, DeSantis is barely up at 0.9. DeSantis will not be your Republican nominee. I'm not wishing ill on anybody, but it's going to be Trump unless something totally unexpected happens. And people will say, well, what about the trials and what about this? And that's not going to, I don't think it's going to change anything. What do we not know about Donald Trump? What is he ever had an unexpressed thought about what he wants to do and how he wants to conduct himself? Everybody's already had their opinion about the trials. Are either, he's guilty of sin or they're all rigged, and there's no in between. And there are a couple of trials I think are overblown. This current one he's going through in New York, this civil case, was brought by a Democrat lieutenant governor who campaigned that she was going to bring charges against Trump. But the other cases about the documents in his home and his involvement in Georgia, I think, are more troubling to me. I think there's more there than just politics. I think there's something to look at. This current one in New York, I'm not that concerned about. And as far as the January 6th one, I don't know if that'll ever go to trial, to tell you the truth. But it's scheduled to go on trial early March. So we'll see what happens with that. My point with all of this is that the Democrats are in trouble. All right, there's no other way to put it. I'm reading articles now, and I've been reading them for a while, where columnists have been pleading with the Democrats not to run Joe Biden. Okay? I read one just yesterday that basically said the Hunter Biden indictment will give Joe Biden the perfect excuse to say, I can't conduct my business and be taking care of my son, so I'm going to not run for re-election. And they'll probably pardon Hunter, which will get everybody excited. But I've been reading articles, more than one now, of Democratic consultants and strategists, and all of them unnamed, of course, anonymous quoted, that they need to not run Joe Biden. There was an article just today about how the one person that could probably make that happen will be Jill Biden, the First Lady. because she could step in and say Joe's health isn't good enough and he's too distracted. There's several articles about that as well. In fact, the one I just read from talks about how Joe Biden can't even really focus on Ukraine or Israel or any other national issue because he's so distracted by his son's condition and situation. But anyway, I've been reading a lot about that. But should Joe Biden not run? But they're always like, who would run in his place? Kamala Harris will not be your next president unless, God forbid, something happens to Joe Biden. All right? Kamala Harris will not win an election. All right? And they talk about Gavin Newsom of California. I think he'd have a hard time winning as well for various reasons. But I don't want to get into all that because it's just speculation. But the truth is that we seem to be heading towards an election that a lot of us really aren't that crazy about. There are a lot of people, a lot of Republicans that are very concerned about Donald Trump. But boy, he sure has a loyal following. There's no question about that. And he will be your Republican nominee, barring something. And it's not going to be, again, a legal situation. Because we already know about that. We've already made our judgments on it. He's either guilty or not. And apparently, some of the polls will say, do you think he's guilty? They say, yes. Are you going to vote for him? Yes. Why? Because the economy is better and the border was more secure and all this other stuff. And speaking of polls, I didn't really get into this, but almost every major issue, Trump is ahead of Biden, in some cases by a lot. The economy, dealing with Russia, dealing with the border, he's way ahead. Dealing with crime, he's even gets better marks in dealing with, in some cases, the environment, which I thought was weird. Maybe that was just a couple of polls that are a little bit off. The only two issues that Biden is ahead in, according to these polls, on issues is abortion, and not by a lot, but by 5 points, and conduct in office, and that's only about a few points as well. But on the major issues that people vote on, security issues and economic issues and tax issues, Trump is way ahead. So there's a lot of people who said, yeah, okay, he's guilty. I'm still voting for him. And and that's all right. Trump will be your nominee unless, God forbid, some health issue or some other issue strikes. Biden, I still think, will be the Democrat nominee. I don't think his ego and his inability to admit that he's declining is going. He's going. I think we're going to have a Trump-Biden match off, and it's going to be interesting, to say the least. Well, okay. I think my voice is about to give out, but I hope it'll be better next week. Monday, I have Victoria Johnson. We're going to talk about the last city council member. Apparently, one of the bigger issues is about some of the downtown restaurants and how much space should they be allowed for their patios and things of that nature. And I don't know enough about the topic to even have an opinion yet. On Tuesday, I have Next Step Women's Center. I always enjoy talking with them. And Thursday is going to be Jennifer Woods again at Harvest House, and I always enjoy talking with her. Taylor, thanks for all your wizardry.
Always.
I need to go get some of that tea. Don't sound sorry.
Yes, sir.
I'm giving out here, but sometimes you got a podcast with pain, as they say in the business. Thank y'all, and we'll see y'all next week.